So it's Inauguration Day for the new president in the United States, and to celebrate and to mark the occasion, I have pulled out an old recipe book of mine, old cookbook. It's the First Lady's Cookbook. And this edition was from 1969. So the very last First Lady in it is Pat Nixon. It talks all about her, and it came out right in the first year or so of her husband's presidency. In here, she has a handwritten recipe for beef Wellington. Now, beef Wellington is kind of a British dish, and there you can see that wonderful 1969 photograph of a beef Wellington. And my husband and I have never actually eaten a beef Wellington because we don't eat beef. So I have decided to recreate this recipe. Thank you, Pat Nixon. And I'm going to be using a venison chateaubriand. So I've just got this delivered from the butcher. I'm going to be smearing it, not in a mushroom doulaise, which is what you're supposed to do, but I'm using a pate. Now, her recipe calls for a pate of foie gras. I don't have that, but I do have a venison and pistachio pate that I was able to get, and I'm going to be rolling it in a puff pastry. So let's see how this turns out. You know, Pat Nixon was born in 1913, and she was born in a mining town in Nevada. Her father was injured in a mining accident, and they moved to California. And then when she was 12 years old, her mother died. So she had to kind of take care of her father and her brothers. And she did that for 5 years. And then when she was 17 years old, her father died. And when she graduated from high school, she started to work as a bank teller, trying to save up money to afford an education. Now, at this point, she had to drive some family members across the country over to New York. So she did that. And while she was in New York, she then needed to save up more money. So she started work as an X-ray assistant in New York. And then finally got enough money to get back to California because she had been accepted at the University of Southern California. Pat Nixon ended up getting a degree in merchandising in 1937. She moved back to California, to a little town called Whittier, where she taught high school. She taught all kinds of things: typing, stenography, taught business law, and she was even in charge of the pep squad, which was kind of like a little cheerleading group for the high school. In her spare time, she herself liked to do a bit of theater, so she was involved in a local amateur dramatics group. And it was there, in 1938, she was in a play called The Dark Tower. The leading man opposite her was Richard Milhouse Nixon. And that is how Patricia Ryan met Richard Nixon. And they soon got married about a year later. So they were married on June 21st, 1940, and he accepted a job in the Office of Economic Management. And then soon he got a promotion that took them to Washington. So they were there for a little while, but then in 1942, that is when he was in the Navy, and she sort of followed him around as a service wife. And then when he was doing a certain duty, she was over in San Francisco waiting for him to finish up. So the war ends, and when Richard Nixon was stationed overseas during the Second World War, Patricia Nixon was working in the Office of Price Administration as an analyst in San Francisco. And then he was discharged in January of 1946, and they moved back to Baltimore, where he had last been stationed, and he worked on war contracts. So funny enough, they're in Baltimore when he decides that he is going to run for the California 12th District as the Republican candidate. And Pat works very hard on his campaign. She writes letters, she attends events, and she is very much the supporting candidate's wife. By this time, the couple had 2 daughters. Patricia was born in 1946, and Julia was born in 1948. Oh, wow. Pat said that she was rather shocked at Richard Nixon's nomination to be vice president. After he served as vice president, they went back to California and he attempted to run for governor, but did not get elected. So after Nixon did not become governor of California, they moved to New York. It was a 10-bedroom apartment in New York City. And it was there that she really got into cooking quite a bit. She would make beef Wellington. It was one of the family's favorite meals. So this is where we take this pate and smear it on the beef, or the venison in my case, all the way around. And I'll do that. And then I will wrap it in the puff pastry. And now we're gonna wrap it in the puff pastry. Yeah, looks so good. I had some on my fingers a minute ago and I tasted it. It's really good. Okay. Tuck, tuck, tuck. Tuck, tuck, tuck. Okay. Look at that! Wow, looks so good! Yes. All right, now it's time to cut.